Hey everyone, Serena Starlight Witch here. Welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is doing well today and fabulous today. So today I am making basically an introduction video and a storytime video. So I want people to know who I am, a little bit about me, especially if you want to order spell work from me. You should be able to know who your practitioner is. And also, I felt Hecate wanted me to share my story because it could help a lot of people. So today I am going to be talking about how I became a witch, and yeah, basically my story. Now, my story is extremely long, complex, and complicated, and extremely personal, so I won't go into too much detail. I'm not going to say everything, and I'm probably going to forget a lot of things, but I wanted to share a little bit about me and my story. Like I said, so future clients can get an idea of who I am, and also to, I don't know, maybe help other people out there. But like I said, my story is very, very long. Very long. I've had so many things happen to me. I've had so many experiences. And I've said in other videos, I do have trouble talking. I have anxiety. I'm shy. I have a speech issue. And I'm dyslexic. So if I stutter over my words, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm not remaking this video. This is like the first and last time I'm going to talk about my story. So, yeah, basically I'm going to talk about my gifts, my abilities, my story of how I became a witch and a practitioner. And I'm going to be upfront and honest. I have an extreme amount of trauma. And I have forgotten a lot of things. A lot of things have been blurred out. So, yeah, I'm going to forget a lot. So, okay. Now, you may hear me pause because I'm thinking. So, I was raised by my grandparents. My mother lived with us, but my mother had what we thought was mental illness. Turns out she was a full-blown medium. She was a medium for sure. But, you know, my family didn't understand anything about spiritual gifts or abilities at that time. They know more now. But she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So she couldn't really raise me. And my mother talked a lot about seeing and hearing spiritual beings and entities. She talked a lot about being spiritually attacked. She was a full-blown psychic medium. Well, I don't know if she was psychic, but she was a medium for sure. What she was seeing was real. I know that now. But she didn't know that. My grandparents didn't know that. So, you know, she was diagnosed with that, and she turned to drugs. She explained that drugs was the only thing that would block it out. Basically, block out her abilities. And so my mother had a lot of issues. So she couldn't really raise me, and we did not have a very good relationship. We didn't, like, fight or anything like that, but there was times where she was abusive, unfortunately. One time she almost unalived me. I'm not going to go into detail. She basically had a psychotic break because of all the drugs and the things she was seeing. And I was caught in the crossfire, and I was abused really bad and was almost unalived. Now I want to say, people say that trauma opens you up in a way that nothing else can. The more trauma you have, the more traumatic experiences you have, it does something to your third eye. It opens you up in a way no one can. And I met spiritual mentors later on that told me that. So, yeah. There's that. And my grandparents, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but what do I want to say? My grandfather did some very horrible things. He was extremely violent and extremely abusive towards my grandmother. Me, on the other hand, I was his baby. You know, I was very spoiled and loved by him. But he was very abusive and very violent. So I grew up in a very, 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 very hard household. I mean, the things I saw, the things I heard, yeah, I have an extreme disorder of anxiety now because of it. I went through things that most people in their life never go through. I mean, I basically grew up in a war zone. Every single day was a war, and it was bad. Yeah. So, if you notice, a lot of magical practitioners, a lot of the real ones go through very traumatic childhoods and lives. So, yeah, I grew up in a very toxic household. I mean, I was deeply loved by my mom, by my grandparents, deeply spoiled. I didn't ever go without anything. I didn't grow up rich, that's for sure. I mean, we were surviving, but, you know, we weren't rich. That went on. All the family domestic violence in my household went on for a very long time. It didn't stop until I was in the 4th, 5th grade. And it was, you know, the domestic violence was already happening before I was born. So I was born into it and, you know, lived that life until I was in the 4th or 5th grade. My education was shit. I couldn't I couldn't learn because I was living in a war zone. I couldn't sleep at night. I got no sleep as a kid. So I would sleep all day and not go to school, or I would go to school and sleep all day in class. So I really didn't learn much as a kid. I wasn't able to because of what I was growing up in. Now, I want to say, despite everything I was going through, I was extremely connected to spirit. Extremely. I was extremely connected to nature. I would go outside, to escape the craziness going on inside. I stayed outside a lot. And I want to try to explain this. I've heard other people going through this. I want to try to talk about this without seeming to be crazy. But I was very connected to nature. It was like I could feel that the trees were alive. We had horses growing up. My grandfather loved horses. And I was extremely connected to these horses. I could look in their eyes and I could read their soul. It was crazy. I could do things that no other child could. I could connect to an animal on a deep spiritual level. I could literally read them. I mean, it was almost like telepathy. I can't remember how you say that word. Telepathy, I think that's what it is. But it was kind of like that. And it was like that with every animal. I was deeply connected to nature, to animals. I could feel the earth. I could feel the trees. I hated wearing shoes as a kid. I hated shoes so freaking much. And now I know why. It's because I wanted to stay grounded to the earth. I was very different. I was very unique. And I had a lot of very lucid, very vivid light dreams as a kid. And I became obsessed with the supernatural and paranormal at a very young age. I'm talking at 4 or 5 years old. I was watching Ghost Adventures. I always knew that there was spiritual things. I always knew that spirit was real. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. I knew these things. I could feel these things. So I became really obsessed with the spiritual realm, the paranormal at a very young age. I do think all the trauma I went through as a kid opened me up, or it kept me open up. As time went on, things in my life did get better. The domestic violence did stop. My mother only got worse, unfortunately. But my gifts got deeper and deeper. It got to the point where I couldn't handle going to school. I was so extremely sensitive to energy. The energy around me, the energy of everything. I was so sensitive to it. And I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. It was rough. And I didn't realize what was going on for a while. But I eventually discovered that it's because I'm so intuitive and I'm so sensitive to energy. And my energy gives off a lot of positivity. And when you give off a lot of positivity, you attract a lot of negativity. So I would soak in a lot of negative energy around me. I hope I'm making sense. So as time went on, my sensitivities, my abilities, it just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And like I said, I was like no other child. No one else was like me. I was extremely mature for my age, extremely wise for my age. People could sit down and talk to me at 8 years old, and they said that they felt like they were talking to a 40-year-old. So I was very wise, and I still am very wise, very intuitive. And as I grew up, like I said, that just got more and more deeper. And I started to find out things about my family. And so things started to kind of add up and make sense. My grandmother would talk a lot about her dreams. And I sat down with her one day and she was telling me how her bloodline was special. She had ancestors who could basically dream of the future, the past. She said that her mother called them the dreamers or dreamwalkers, something like that. I can't remember what she said exactly, but she said that it was a gift of dreaming that passed down through her bloodline. And I 100%, 1000% have that gift because my dreams are wild. Hers were too, but mine are on a whole nother level. But she would dream about spiritual things, past, present, future. She would dream about spirits. But, she was Christian. So she didn't go into it like I did. She kind of stayed away from it. But she would talk about our gift of dreaming. Now, my grandfather didn't like talking about witchcraft, which is hilarious because he's now one of the biggest spirits that I work with. Because, mind you, even though he did some horrible things when he was alive, I was still his baby, essentially. And so he's very close with me in spirit. But he didn't like talking about those things. He wouldn't say much. He would just say, yeah, your grandmother's bloodline was special and they were gifted. They did things, and that's all I'm going to say. That's all he would say. I was told, I've heard rumors, bits and pieces of rumors, that I had an aunt, a great aunt, that was apparently an extremely powerful witch. That she was basically the last living one in my family. And from what I heard, she wanted to pass down her knowledge to my grandmother, but my grandmother was a Christian. Her mom was a Christian. Her mom wouldn't allow the aunt to pass on that knowledge to her. Apparently there was some stuff that was burned, but I was also told in a dream that a family member possibly could have stolen her grimoires that did survive. But a lot of her stuff was burnt and destroyed by my great-grandmother because she was Christian, very, very heavily Christian. She didn't want that passing down. Which it ended up passing down anyways, because now I'm I'm one of them. I'm now a practitioner. So, but I want to say most families were converted to Christianity. Back in the day when the witch trials was happening, a lot of very powerful bloodline with gifted people, seers, witches, practitioners, a lot of them was forced to convert to Christianity. Their grimoires were burned. This was common. So most families are Christian. Most natural-born witches are born Christian because their ancestors had no choice but to convert at some point. So my family was converted. And I just recently found out how deep the gifts run in my family. But yeah, I don't know much. I just know that this aunt of mine, great aunt, was a witch. A lot of secrets have been kept from me. I believe that there is a family member who knows more, who won't share that knowledge. A family member who I know for a fact has had spells done on me. Why? I don't know. But I believe she knows more. She won't tell me. I think she's trying to keep all the knowledge and power to herself, is what I think. But I recently did some digging, and I found out a bunch of stuff. I kept having dreams about my ancestors. Now, when you start working with your ancestors, they will come in your dreams and they will tell you things. So since I've been venerating them, they've been coming to me and telling me that my grandmother, she came from a powerful Celtic line. She didn't just have a gift of dreaming. They did Celtic magic, and there was possibly druids in my bloodline. My grandmother was Irish. And like I said, she told me that there was gifts in her bloodline, that her bloodline was special, but she wasn't allowed to go too much into it. And I looked into it recently because my ancestors kept coming to me and telling me about how powerful my bloodline is. I believe my bloodline is connected to the Fae after looking into it. And I recently found out that I had ancestors who were noble, who served royalty. I found out that they were Celtic witches, Celtic priestess, and druids. And yeah, I found out that my bloodline is very powerful, apparently, that I have ancestors who were very, very powerful, but everyone was converted and forced to stop, unfortunately. So I don't know everything about my bloodline, but that's what I've been able to find out so far. I was saying something earlier, but I completely forgot what it was. I think it was something to do with my aunt who was a practitioner. I had a friend who, I don't want to talk too much about him, but he told me that I am this aunt reincarnated. And she did tell people, family members said that. She claimed that she was going to come back, that she was going to return. And yeah, I think she wanted to bring the magic back in the family, keep it in the family. I've had a friend tell me that I am this person reincarnated. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I am or not. It would explain a lot of things because I started casting spells at 14 years old, and I literally knew every single thing to do without reading a book, without looking up anything online. I have known how to do magic without studying or learning anything, so that would make sense. But I truthfully don't think I am her because I've had dreams about her. She's came to me. It is possible. Well, I don't know. That's too complicated. I'm not going to go into that. So I guess it is possible that I'm her reincarnated, and all that knowledge and abilities that I had then came back to me. But I don't think so. I think that she's with me and that she's helping me with my magic is what I think. But I was told by someone very, very, very powerful. This is a very powerful sorcerer who told me that I am her. He knew nothing about this person. He didn't even know she existed. He just started to read me, and he told me, he was like, you came back. And he explained everything. I was like, oh, that sounds a lot like my aunt. I did have a past life regression in 2022. And in this past life hypnosis regression, I did find out that I had a past life in Atlantis, and I was a high priestess in Atlantis, and I was a very, 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 very powerful person. I was part of the government. I don't want to go too much into it because I will sound crazy, but I was very powerful. I was very important. I had a lot to do with the government. I had a lot to do with magic. I was helping the government experiment with things. Yeah, I was very powerful in Atlantis, so I do believe that some of my gifts came from that past life. That's my theory. I think there's a lot of reasons why I'm gifted, but I think that's part of it is because of the past life I had in Atlantis. And mind you, in this hypnosis, I saw things that I could not make up. It was mind-blowing, the things that I saw. I saw all of Atlantis. It was crazy. I could see life on Mars. I saw a whole civilization on Mars. It was crazy what I saw in this hypnosis. This done by someone who was taught by Dolores Cannon, I believe. But this was like a real hypnosis specialist who did this for me. So yeah, I think some of my gifts and abilities come from that, but also my bloodline. I'm sorry if I'm all over the place. I'm literally, like, all over the place. But my point is that I was born with gifts and abilities. So, me and my grandmother were extremely close. We were like sisters, we were like twins. Unfortunately, she had a heart attack when I was 14, and she died, and basically my whole world fell apart, quite literally. Everything that could have went wrong, and it sucks because my grandfather has stopped being abusive towards her, and we became a happy family. He was arrested when I was in the 4th or 5th grade, and he stopped everything, and we became, the happy little American family. And it didn't last very long. My grandmother passed away when I was in the 7th grade, I think, so it didn't last very long. And when I say I experienced some insane spiritual stuff when she died, I can't talk about without sounding crazy. I went into a major depression, a major grief. Also, let me mention something else because I believe that this is significant. My grandmother was very sick. She had heart problems ever since I was a baby. She was in and out of the hospital. So was my grandfather, but mostly my grandmother. And as a child, I was drugged in and out of the hospital my whole childhood. I practically lived in the hospital. And I do believe that did something to me as well. Being around sick people, dying people. Hospitals are full of spirits. And I do also believe that opened me up as well. I was around sick people so much. I was around death so much. I believe a lot of spirits followed me home. Because I did find out I had an insane amount of spiritual attachments that, I've gotten rid of it now, but I think that that's part of it, being in and out of the hospital with my grandmother so much as a child. But she passed away when I was 14, and that's when I really, really got into the craft. I went into this deep, 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 dark depression. Of course, my mother wasn't there for me because she had those issues. My grandfather went into a dark depression as well, so we kind of separated a little bit. I had 2 aunts. One aunt didn't give a crap about me. The other aunt, she was kind of like a godmother to me in a way, but she also just cared about what she can get out of me. So I didn't have anyone there for me. I really, really didn't have anyone there for me at all. I suffered. When I tell you guys I suffered. I was so lost without my grandmother. I just fell apart completely. I've lost a bunch of weight. I just laid in bed for months. And my grandmother, her spirit started trying to reach out to me. Stuff would fly off the walls, the lights would flicker, and I started having all these insane dreams. I don't want to go too much in detail, but there was a night where I woke up and she was literally standing in front of my bed. Like she was resurrected, like she was really, really there. And, she was touching me and I could feel her. There was this light behind her. And she was talking to me. That message is personal. I'm not going to go into it, but yeah. She did say that God allowed her to do this, to get a message to me. She did say that, but I'm not going to say anything other than that. But after that, I continued to have crazy spiritual experiences. I started seeing Archangel Michael. I can't even really talk about all the things that I went through without sounding crazy. But something about losing my grandmother and going through such a deep, dark depression, already being traumatized, it opened me up. It opened up my third eye to a whole nother level. But I also believe I'm gifted because of my bloodline and my past life. So, yeah, I started having so many spiritual experiences, seeing demons, angels, Archangel Michael. I felt energy on a whole nother level. I could feel it when I was a kid, but this was on a whole nother level. Like, I knew the third eye was real. I knew the spirit world was real. I felt more connected to God than ever, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And so, I started doing research at 14 about the third eye and chakras and the spirit world, and I learned a bunch. I started messing around with energy work at 14. I started casting spells, and I started doing spells without even, looking up. I was looking up stuff about the third eye and chakras, the spirit world, but I didn't look up stuff about witchcraft. I felt this deep calling to do witchcraft. I didn't even know what witchcraft was. I heard about witchcraft being in my family and my aunt, but I didn't know what it was. And I kept hearing the word witchcraft. I kept feeling witchcraft. I kept being called to do it. So I started doing spells without even knowing what to do. I was doing love honey jars out in the full moon. I knew what to do without learning. I went to a Dollar Tree, and I went to a Dollar Tree with my poor mentally unstable mom. She had no idea why I was wanting to buy all these candles instead of shopping for cute little knickknacks at the Dollar Tree. And I was just buying all these candles and started doing these love spells in front of the outside under the full moon. And mind you, again, I didn't look up anything about witchcraft. I was just called. I just knew what to do. Let's just say that person that I was doing love spells on, yeah, I'm still with that person to this day, and they worship me, literally worship me. Those love spells that I was doing under the full moon, they worked within weeks. Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. Somehow, some way, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was using Dollar Tree candles, casting love spells under the full moon with that person's photo, my photo. How I know what to do, I don't know, but I'm still with that person today, and that person still worships me today. And any issues we do have, if I cast a love spell, those issues are gone immediately. So that's when I knew I was good at love magic. I didn't force anyone's free will. this person was already with me, but they were being a dick. And I got tired of it. Went to go to Dollar Tree and got a bunch of red candles, dollar candles. Me and my mom went and got Chinese food afterwards. I did this love spell under the full moon, and that person's still with me today. And that's when I was 14. I'm in my late 20s now. So, and like I said, I had no idea what I was doing, but somehow I did know what I was doing intuitively. I knew exactly what to do, but I hadn't studied or did any research. But I do not recommend that for a beginner at all. Okay, I learned the hard way. I had to do some banishing, in the past to get rid of negative entities. I had to close doors I had opened up. I had did so much without doing any research. And yeah, I had to fix up a lot of things that I screwed up because I didn't learn. But that's how you know you're a natural born witch, is when you can literally cast a spell and you've never learned, you never opened up a book, and you cast a couple love spells and they've been working ever since. That's how you know you're a real practitioner. But yeah, my point is I started at 14. That whole experience with my grandmother coming to me opened me up on a whole nother level. And I will say this. I was born Christian, and I was always taught, my grandfather, he didn't like the stuff that ran in my grandmother's bloodline. So, he would say witchcraft is evil, and he really kept me in church despite all the bad things he was doing. But he really kept me in the church. And so I went through this really difficult time between 14 and 15. I had this deep calling to work with spirit and to do witchcraft, even though I didn't really know what it was. I hadn't studied. I just felt this deep calling. I could feel energy. I could feel the spirits. I could feel source. I was completely different than your normal average teenager. It's crazy. It blows my mind to this very day. Sorry I'm having trouble talking. Like I said, this is a very long and complicated story. I think some people have similar stories, so I want to get mine out there. Yeah, so, I had that fear that I could go to hell. I had that fear that I was doing something evil because of being raised in the church. So I went to Christianity. I went back to Christianity 3 times, I believe. I stopped doing witchcraft, went back to Christianity. I would be at church and I could feel source. I could feel that God was with me. I could feel that the angels were with me. But I also felt this deep pull to do witchcraft. I was still young. I still didn't really understand it, but I just knew that I was meant to do magic. So I would leave the church and go back into it. And I did that 3 times. Each time 3 or 4 times. Each time I left, the first time I left, no, the second time. Was it the first time or the second time? Okay, so I started doing magic at 14. Then I got scared that I was going to go to hell because I was raised in the church. So I went back to church. And then I left church again, and I started studying Wicca. That was where I started. I was like, okay, maybe it's okay to learn and read about it. So I just started reading about it, and so I started learning about Wicca, studying Wicca. I quickly discovered that wasn't for me, but it was an excellent starting point. I think all beginners should start with Wicca because it is a good starting point. Started doing magic again after studying Wicca for a while. And then did I go back to church again? Probably so. I went back to church. I went back and forth several times. Went to church, got back into witchcraft, went back to church, got back into witchcraft. Every time I went back to church, all I could think about was witchcraft. And not just witchcraft, but like the paranormal, the supernatural. I was so deeply curious about the afterlife and spirits. I felt this deep calling to learn about this stuff. I also felt a deep calling to cross over spirits and to do healing work. And so yeah, I kept leaving the church, practicing witchcraft again, learning again. Each time I left the church and went back to spiritual stuff, I would go deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And eventually, I want to say around 17, 18, I started meeting some spiritual mentors, basically on accident. One of my mentors, she told me that all this was normal, that a lot of people will do that you'll be called to go into Christianity out of fear, and then you'll get back into the spiritual back and forth. So she explained all that to me. She taught me a lot of things about the third eye, about energy manipulation. So I'm trying to remember what happened. My grandfather did pass away when I was 16, I believe. So each time someone passed away, my gifts would get stronger. He passed away at 16, when I was 16, and then he started coming to me. He started communicating with me. He started visiting me. He started apologizing to me about things, and he basically told me that he sees everything now, that everything's different on the other side. Then my mother passed away when I was 20, I believe. So all during this time, like I said, I kept going back to Christianity out of fear. So I think I definitely went back more than 3 times. I'd go to church, leave church, get into it, go back to church. My mother passed away when I was 20. And after that, I just started to get into therapy. Her death was very tragic and traumatic for me. So I started going to therapy, and I was like, you know what, maybe I'm crazy. maybe I got schizophrenia like she does. Even though mostly what I was seeing and experiencing was through dreams, I didn't like, it's hard to explain. I would sometimes actually see, like I saw my grandmother that time, like she was really there. I saw my grandfather a few times, but most of what I was experiencing was through dreams. When I was seeing spirit, I mean. But I decided to go to therapy, and I was like, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe there's something wrong with me. It's not normal to know how to do magic when you've never studied it. It's not normal to have these dreams about the spirits and the angels. It's not normal to be able to feel energy, and it won't normal. So yeah, I started going to therapy. And the therapist that I had, she, believe it or not, it's like the universe just set it all up for me. This therapist in particular, she studied not only psychological things, but she studied the supernatural. She has certificates and degrees, and I don't remember what, but it wasn't just psychology. She went and studied the supernatural and the paranormal as well. Went to college for that stuff. I don't know and what exactly. I can't remember. But she told me that there was a big difference between mental illness and spiritual abilities. It's crazy how spiritual this therapist was. I mean, she had gone to college her whole life. She has studied these things her whole life. And she explained to me there was a big difference between someone who's mentally unstable, mentally ill, and someone who's gifted. I explained to her everything that my mother went through, and without a doubt, she told me, your mother was not mentally ill. She's like, this is not signs of schizophrenia. She's like, your mother was a psychic medium. And she's like, that's very common for people to use drugs to block out those abilities, especially when they're born in religion and they're told that these things are demonic and they don't understand how to use their gifts. You know, my therapist said that basically sounds like my mother was very gifted, extremely gifted. Whatever was in my bloodline had passed down to her. And, you know, she didn't understand cleansing and protection, so she was basically being attacked at all times. And she used drugs as a form of protection, really. And yeah, like this is a real person, a real therapist who went to college, she talked to exorcists, she talked to experts, like she knew what she was talking about. And I explained everything to her about my mother. And she looked me in my eyes and said, that is not mental illness. What you're talking about is not typical symptoms of schizophrenia and mental illness. She said those are all signs of a psychic medium. And she taught me a little bit how to use my gifts, and she told me, obviously you have those gifts as well. She taught me how to work with Archangel Michael. She explained that she worked with the angels. She worked with the chakras in the third eye. She taught me a little bit how to work with the angels, how to do a little bit of spiritual work. But I saw that therapist for a very long time, and she helped me through my abilities. It was very good being able to talk to someone who understood what I was going through, you know, who could talk to me without telling me that I'm crazy. So there's that. Talked about the therapist and my mom. Well, yeah, the older I got, the more my gifts developed. I started getting into tarot readings. I think I was maybe 18, 17, I don't remember. I'm probably getting the timelines mixed up. But I started getting into tarot readings. I started learning witchcraft from the bottom up. Started learning cleansing, grounding, and protection. I think I went back to Christianity one more time. You know, when you're raised in religion, you definitely have a trauma. You know, like, if you're raised as a Christian, then you know how many times people tell you that you're going to go to hell for doing this stuff. So I went back several times. But every time I went, I could feel this deep pull. I mean, I'm talking about a pull like I cannot put it into words. It was like my spirit's like, no, you're not meant to be a Christian. Go do witchcraft. So eventually I left Christianity altogether. You know, I tell people I wanted to be a normal person. I wanted to be your normal, average, everyday person. I really fought this. I fought my abilities. I fought my gifts. That's partly why I kept going back to Christianity. You know, I would get into it and then I would leave it. I would get into it and then I would leave it. And, you know, every time I would leave, I would put the craft away. I would put my books away. Every single time I would start having crazy dreams. I would, you know, I could still feel the energy around me. I was so connected to source, to the angels, to the earth. I could do energy manipulation. I started healing friends that I met online. I started doing healing work on them. Even though I kept leaving the craft, and this is before I mastered Reiki, and I just knew how to heal them. Without learning anything about healing work, I could heal them, and I would blow their freaking minds away. So it's like every time I got out of it, somehow I'd get back into it, and I would feel this deep inner calling to do spiritual work. You know, I fought it tooth and nail. This wasn't something, you know, I'm not a pandemic witch like those people on TikTok. I didn't just decide to get into this. It's literally in my bloodline. Like, I was born like this, quite literally. Like I said, I could cast spells without even learning. I mean, I just immediately knew what to do without learning. I don't even remember where I'm at in my timeline. There are other experiences I want to talk about. I just don't know if I want to talk about it because people will think I'm crazy. Let's just say my psychic abilities is pretty dang powerful. I can communicate with all kinds of spiritual beings, not just angels and yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I started having some more insane spiritual abilities. Lucifer started coming to me. It was crazy. I mean, yeah, it was crazy. That's why I tell people I'm a natural born energy worker, because I could feel energy as a child, and I've always been able to. And now, I learned how to manipulate it and actually use it properly. But yeah, like I said, I fought tooth and nail. I kept getting into it and out of it, going back to Christianity, fighting it. I kept wanting to live a normal life. I'll get caught back into it. Like I said, it was this deep, deep, deep feeling that I could not ignore. And also, it's very hard to ignore it when you have abilities. The last time I went to church, a young woman, I think a family member of a person going to church, a very young woman, passed away from cancer. And she came to me, and I was able to cross her over and help her find peace. And I believe that was the last time I went to church. So I do think I was meant to go that one more time to help her. I have, where am I at in my timeline? Okay, so 2019 is when I basically decided to stop fighting it. I was like, I can't fight it. What I feel and see is real. The things I know is real. I'm not like other people. I can't go to church and live a normal life. My abilities are just too powerful. It's just too real. I realized that I was meant to live a spiritual life, so I stopped fighting it at that point. So I studied and practiced for a while in 2019. I opened up an Etsy shop in 2020 and started offering little spells, little mini chime candle spells that did work. I did it for very cheap. Spells that I did for myself. I wasn't advanced enough to offer like really powerful rituals like I can do now. So I felt called to do this. Like, I just knew I was meant to offer spiritual work. I knew I was meant to help people. I knew I was meant to do witchcraft. It wasn't something I did for money. It was a calling. It was a deep, deep spiritual calling. So I started offering spells, and of course I got all good reviews. No one ever complained. And I will say, it wasn't like I didn't know what I was doing. But by the time of 2019, I was pretty experienced. I had been studying on and off. I had been practicing since I was 14. I just want to get that out of the way. I didn't just start offering services for money. I knew what I was doing. I just didn't have as much experience as I do now, so I can offer bigger rituals now than what I could then. I don't want to go too much into it, but in 2020, something really horrible happened to my family and to me. I really can't go into it. I had to stop practicing. I stopped practicing. I had to stop offering services. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it. Right before this happened, I met Hecate. Actually, that's when Hecate came to me. No, I think she came to me in 2019. Yeah, right before the bad stuff happened. She came to me. Yeah, she came to me, I think, right before I started offering spells on Etsy. And mind you, I had no idea who Hecate was. I was completely new to working with deities. I had no idea who or what she was. I just knew something was reaching out to me. And then I kept seeing the name Hecate. And finally, I sat down. I was like, I don't know who or what you are, but I keep seeing the name Hecate. So I sat down in front of my altar and I said, Hecate, if you're real, if you're reaching out to me, please show me a sign. And I kid you not, I felt this gigantic spiritual being pop up behind me, like a titaness. I mean, I couldn't see them, but I can feel their presence. I mean, I could feel that they were huge, and I could feel that this was Hecate. I just could feel it. I sense it. Yeah, it was a whole crazy experience that I had. So I started working with Hecate after that in 2019. She's been with me ever since. Actually, I think she's been with me since childhood. I'm working with other spirits. Actually, Archangel Michael was the first spirit who came to me. I started working with him when I was a very young teenager, because he kept popping up in my dreams and talking to me. He gave me a message in one of these dreams that's made me wonder something. He kind of gave me a hint of an idea of another reason why I have abilities. I won't get into that. But yeah, something in 2020 happened to my family, and it happened to me, and it was very, very bad in my family. Yeah, I'm not gonna go too much into that. That's too personal. I had to stop practicing for a while. That went on until about mid 2020. I want to say there were some things that went on for a while. I was in a very horrible situation. I'm very lucky to be alive. I don't know how I'm alive, to be honest with you, considering what I went through. I tell people all the time, if you think you went something bad, if you think you went through something bad, I can almost guarantee you I've been through worse. But that's what happens to practitioners, natural born practitioners. Usually shit hits the fan right before they completely go into their craft. I don't know why. I don't know if that's the universe testing you. I don't know if that's how spirits... I don't know. I don't know why that happens to us real practitioners, but it does. I've heard of similar things happening to practitioners. Something really horrible will happen in their life, and then they get into the craft permanently after that. I'm trying to think what else I want to say. I basically I got to a point where my life was so bad. I talked to Hecate. I was like, look, I don't care what you got to do. Please, like, help me. Like, do something. I don't care what it is you got to do. Make this stop. Make this end. I can't do it anymore. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have told her to do whatever she got to do, because right after I prayed to her and asked her for her help, something really, 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 really bad happened. And it put it into everything else that was happening. Not saying that Hecate hurts people, because she don't. But I think that was the only option that she saw. I think that in order to make everything stop, she had to make something bad happen. Not that anyone was like unalived or anything like that, but something really bad did happen, and it put an end to what I was going through and experiencing. Now I'm very careful about what I ask and petition, with the spirits. Yeah. After that happened, I waited a few months to heal and work through the trauma. But my gifts were like wide open after that. My third eye was completely opened. Like I said, I have been told by many spiritual mentors that trauma opens you up in a way that nothing else can. So as someone who's been through an extreme amount of trauma, I definitely think it opened me up. I think, my gifts come from my family, my past life, my bloodline, and the trauma. So I got back into the craft. I started practicing, and I went all the way in. So this was, I'm probably wrong on the timeline, guys. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong on the timeline. I think I started practicing again in 2021, actually. I don't remember. But there was like several months there where I couldn't practice at all because of what I was going through. So after this, a lot of spirits started reaching out to me. I was completely new to deity work. So I started working with other spirits. I started working really heavily with Hecate. Started getting into more advanced. Sorry, my ghost keeps knocking over. It's probably a sign. So I started getting into very advanced stuff. I'm thinking at it now. I'm pretty sure I'm completely wrong on timelines. But that's okay. I'm trying to remember here. Yeah, was it 2021 or 2022? I can't remember. But my point is that I've been practicing for a very long time. I wanted to share my story with you guys, and I've left out a lot of details. But I've been practicing since I was 14, on and off. I got into it consistently in 2019, but then that horrible thing happened and I couldn't practice for how long. I don't remember. I'm so traumatized. A lot of it's very blurry. And Hecate got me out of that situation, and then I started practicing again. But yeah, I've been practicing since I was 14. Like I said, I started casting spells with Dollar Tree ingredients under the full moon without even reading my first book. Didn't even look anything up online. I've just always been very connected to energy, to spirit, to nature. I was born with these gifts, and then I found out all that stuff about my family, and I'm still looking into it. I was also told by someone that the land I live on is very powerful. I live on a Native American burial ground, so I do believe that they're with me. One day during Halloween night, I walked outside and I heard Native American chanting and drumming all around me. I'm not even freaking joking. It was insane. It was like they were literally dancing around me, chanting and drumming. And there was no Native Americans to be found anywhere near where I live when that happened. So yeah, I've left a lot out. I've had a lot of spiritual experiences, a lot of supernatural experiences. That's the life of being a medium. I've crossed over many souls, talked to many different spirits. Anyway, I was told by this person that living on a Native American burial ground, and she didn't know this when she told me, she's like, your land is very powerful. She's like, it's very powerful. There's something about this place, the property that you live on, it's very magical. And I think it's because it's a Native American burial ground, and I think they could have practiced magic here. I think my ancestors did magic here as well. I have that theory. So I wanted to talk about my story and share a little bit about my story, because my spirit told me that people need to hear my story, because there's other people out there that experience these things. But yeah, I'm not like these practitioners on TikTok that just started practicing in the pandemic and started selling spell work. Like I said, I was born into this. Bloodline wise, I think it has something to do with my past life. It has a lot to do with a lot of things, I think. Like I said, I knew how to do a spell before I ever did any sort of research. Looking back at it now, I'm very advanced now, very advanced. I can do some pretty crazy things now, and I'm pretty amazed. I never in a billion years thought that I would be the practitioner that I am today. It's crazy how advanced I am now. Not saying that I know everything, because as a practitioner, you're always evolving and learning and growing. But it's crazy. Looking back at it now, I'm like, wow, I knew exactly what to do. I knew exactly how to cast a spell. How I knew, I don't know. Is it because it's in my bloodline? I don't know. Is it because of a past life? I don't know. But I was born to do this. I'm literally a natural born witch. People say there's no such thing as a natural born witch. There is, but we're extremely rare. A natural born witch is someone like me who usually we have traumatic childhoods for some reason. We're born feeling energy. We're born being connected to spirit and nature. We know how to cast a spell without ever studying. That's what natural born is. Natural born witch is. What makes a natural born witch? I don't know. I don't know if it's our bloodline, past lives. I think it could be both. And I also think that God chooses you. I did have a dream a few months ago. A dream that I haven't really told anyone about because I don't believe anyone will ever believe me. But I do want to share it with you guys. So I had a dream. And my dreams feel real. I could not even tell I was dreaming. But I had a dream that I was on a mountain. And I heard this voice. I'm telling you, there's no way anyone could ever recreate this voice. It was so enchanting and so I can't even explain it. Actually, I'm being told not to go into too much detail about it. Spirit was like, hold up, be quiet. I'm like, okay. All I'm going to say is that, basically, the voice said that they were God and that they have touched me and gave me God-gifted abilities. And I'm not going to go too much into the dream because one day I want to go to a sketch artist and have this dream drawn out. Because what I saw was crazy. I'm pretty sure I saw God in my dream. I'm pretty sure I heard his voice. And God is male, female. I'm just saying God. Source. Why he gave me abilities? I think he gave me more gifts and abilities for some reason. More than what I already have. I believe, he told me I had a spiritual army. And that basically I was meant to do spiritual work, that it was my purpose, that I didn't have to feel bad about it, that I didn't have to worry that I was going to go to hell. He said more, but it's really personal. I had a friend, he told me that there are people who can hear God. He said that he had a great-grandfather that could hear God, that did healing work for people, and that those people, that his great-grandfather could heal people of pretty much anything. And he said that he could hear the voice of God. And he told me, he said only the most powerfully gifted spiritual people can hear the voice of God. And he was explaining to me how that's possible. And this was years ago. This was way before I had this dream. And I think it's crazy looking back at it now that he told me this. I think he was meant to tell me this for a reason. So after that experience, I do believe in God-gifted people. I do believe God gifts people. I do believe he chooses people to do this work, to help people. Yeah, after having that whole experience, and I'm still mind blown to this day. Sorry, I'm stuttering. I'm still mind blown to this day what I saw and heard. It was nothing, literally, not even AI can remake it. It was so enchanting, so mind blowing. It was just crazy. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about my story, about what I've gone through. I think it's important that I share my story because people need to know what a real practitioner is. It's not someone who just decides to wake up one day and start practicing magic. Like the scammers on TikTok who just decide to wake up and start practicing magic, who, started practicing during the pandemic. A real practitioner is someone who's God-gifted. And, a lot of people can practice magic. But, the people who are destined to do this as a spiritual career and work, I guess you can say, we're born like this, I'm trying to find the right words. My point is, you see all those people on TikTok bragging about their power. If you were destined to do witchcraft as a service to others, as a spiritual job, you would be like me. You would have been practicing at a very young age. This kind of work, you're destined to do it. You're chosen to do it as part of your life purpose. You don't just decide to wake up and start practicing and then start offering people services. That's my belief. I'm not saying that it's a fact, but it's my belief that someone who is meant to do this as a job, as a career, is someone who's born into it, someone who's chosen by God, someone who has gifts and abilities. Like I said, I kept leaving the craft. I kept trying to get out of it. I literally was trying to escape it and run from my gifts, from my abilities, from my spirits. And after having that dream, I know for a fact that I made the right choice to leave the church permanently, to stay in the craft permanently, because God came to me and told me I made the right choice, basically. My gifts scare me. They do. My spells scare me. How powerful my spells are, the connection I have with my spirits. It's a little freaky sometimes. It really is. It's scary. You might can hear my stomach growling. I need to go eat. I'm sorry if this is a long and confusing video. I just wanted to share my story so you guys can get an idea of who I am, how I practice my story. There's a lot more to it than this. I left a lot out. But yeah, I started practicing at 14, on and off. Eventually, well, I started learning on and off. I got into Wicca, left Wicca, started learning more about the third eye. It was a back and forth thing. I was fighting tooth and nail with my abilities and my gifts because I wanted to live a normal life. I wanted to go to school and be a nurse, but I kept being called into spiritual service by God, basically. That's why I'm so passionate about the craft. I get upset about scammers because it's not something you just decide to wake up and do. You're born into it. You're chosen. Lots of people are chosen, by God to do spiritual work. Lots of people are born into this. I'm not saying I'm, the chosen one and I'm the only one. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I'm one of those people. But there's really not many people like that. There is, but not as many as it seems like, because there's more scammers than real gifted people out there. Finding a real gifted person is hard. It's difficult finding a real one out there. I'm going to talk more about, I'm going to make a video about, can you do your own spells yourself? In my honest opinion, someone like me who's born knowing how to do spells, born connected to spirit, to nature, born knowing how to do energy and sense it, someone like that, our spells, in my opinion, is much more powerful than someone who just decides to wake up and do a spell and get into witchcraft. That's my belief. That's my opinion. I believe that's partly why my spells are so powerful, because they are. But, I like to give my spirits most of the credit because they deserve the credit and God deserves the credit. I'm just a human. If anything, I'm just a conduit for God and the spirits to work through me. That's my belief. That's my opinion. That's my story. If you have any questions, let me know. I know a lot of people go through things like this. They go through trauma and they have gifts and abilities that they don't understand. They feel called to the craft. So I wanted to share my story because of that. And you're not the only one. If you're going through trauma, if you're going through feeling a calling to do craft or spiritual work, that happens. If you feel like calling, sorry, my mouth is dry. I need to get off here. But yeah, just know you're not the only one out there. Explore your abilities, learn about your abilities. That's what I would say. And don't be like me and go casting spells immediately and don't know what you're doing. Because even though my spells were very powerful at the age of 14, I did open up doorways that I had to later on fix. I always warned people about getting into the craft and casting spells before. Even though I know I was born to do this, I had the knowledge somehow in me, I should have learned first. I should have learned cleansing and protection. I just got straight into magic. My spells worked. They never failed. But I had to fix issues that I caused later on because of not doing things like cleansing and protection. So anyway, I'm rambling at this point. I just want to share my story so you can get to know about me, my magic, how I work. So my name is Serena Starlight Witch. I am a natural-born psychic medium. I am a Reiki master, a natural-born healer. I do work with many different types of spirits. I basically do very advanced candle magic. Most of the spells I do, I petition spirit. I'm not like other spellcasters. I'm not going to scam you, but I won't promise you results either. If you buy a service from me, I will give it my all and my everything. If you don't see results, no, I won't refund you because I can't take back my materials, my money, my time, and supplies. But at least if you ever buy anything from me, you're buying from a real caster, someone who's really gifted, who's really powerful, not a fraud. I am excellent in love magic, but I'm also extremely good at uncrossings and blockbusters and road openers. Like I said, I have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, I'm not saying I'm the end-all be-all, but I do believe that I am one of the best practitioners out there. That may sound egotistical, and I'm sorry if it does, but I do believe I am one of the best. If there was a top 10, top 20 best practitioners in the world, I would be on that list. Just saying. And it's because, like I was saying, I was born into it. I was born like this. I tried to run from it, and I couldn't. I was offering services on Etsy, like I was talking about earlier. I stopped because of Etsy's bad reputation. They also shadow banned me. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to open up a Shopify. I just haven't decided yet. I don't want to deal with the complications and the hassle of a website. I'm either going to do Coffee or Shopify. I haven't decided yet. But I will be offering all kinds of services. I'm thinking about doing consultations, but I really don't want to deal with people because people, well, not that I don't want to deal with them. I do want to deal with people. I want to help people, but that clients can get a little crazy sometimes, especially when they're very desperate and emotionally vulnerable. I've heard a lot of practitioners say that they cannot handle the stress of taking on clients and consultations. So I don't know if I want to do that. I'm probably just going to open up a Shopify and let you buy what you want to buy. But I am going to make a video for clients, like before you buy this spell, this and this and this, explaining what you should do, giving you instructions and how I work. So yeah, there's that. I am offering readings on my new Etsy shop, Serena Starlight Witch. No, Serena Starlight, not Witch, just Serena Starlight. And I've been doing readings. I started doing oracle readings in 2017, I think, and tarot in 2019. I'm probably wrong on the timeline. but I've studied tarot and oracle for years and years and years. I've had teachers teach me how to do readings. I've done thousands of readings at this point for people. So I'm very, very good at doing readings. I don't just sit down and flop down some cards. No, no, no. I call in my spirits. I cleanse, protect. I call in your spirits. I do the whole 9 yards. None of that scamming, witchy tarot live readings on TikTok. Not like they do. No, I do it correctly. I do it right. So that's just a little more about me, a little more information. If you want to know more about me, comment down below. If you want to support me, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. I was very open and vulnerable in this video. Probably put too much information out there, but I want people to know me. People should know their practitioner, you know? They should know who they're buying spells from. I want people to be able to trust me. I want people to feel like they can come to me. You know, I am not a judgmental person. You know, I understand people who are traumatized, who's been through a lot, who are hurting and need help. Like I said, I don't give refunds because I can't take back my labor, my time, my energy, but I do put my everything into spell work. You know, for my clients, for my people, to help them because I care. I know what it's like to suffer and need help because I've been there. A lot of practitioners, especially these young practitioners on TikTok who are scamming, they haven't went through what I went through. A lot of them can't understand like I can understand. A lot of them are not even sympathetic. They're just money hungry. Some of them are, but a lot of them are just after your money. So I want people to know me as a practitioner, know me as a person, know, you know, who they're trusting their energy with. Yeah, I'm going to make more videos about my services, how spells work. Yeah, I have a big, big plan for my channel. So, you know, subscribe, support me. I would greatly appreciate that. I do greatly appreciate that. And like I said, you know, I won't ever judge you. If you ever come to me for a reading or a spell, no matter what you're going through, I will never judge you. Feel free to comment down below and tell me a little bit about your story. If you're a witch, tell me a little bit about your story, you know. Feel free to comment down below and express your stories, your beliefs, your opinions. This is a safe place. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. I'm sorry for rambling. I hope this video makes sense, and love and light and lots of blessings. I love each and every one of you, and I hope for the best for each and every one of you, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day or night. Bye.